If you're going into this review for a simple, should I buy it or not, I would tell you to take that greasy ass credit card out of your wallet and buy the game. Without getting into spoilers, this game is a roguelike with a heavy focus on a risk and reward system. The bigger risk your dumbass takes without ending up boiled alive by that lava worm, the higher the rewards. Here's your obligatory spoiler warning. To give an actual review, I need to get into spoiler territory. If you don't like spoilers, why did you click on this video? Now that I have the target audience, let's actually start this review. Risk of Rain 2 is one of those games that feels low poly, yet super detailed at the same time. To elaborate, the models don't look super textured at all, but the game makes up for the lack of graphics in pure, raw gameplay. And some nice little details shown on the character models. For example, this is Commando. The first character you have at your disposal in the game isn't very textured at all, kind of basic, really, basic soldier. But as you go throughout the game and collect more items, an interesting thing happens. Every time you pick up an item, it appears on your character. This adds to the feel of low poly yet super detailed. This creates some interesting visuals that are capable of keeping your eyes locked on the screen for hours on end. Now, let's get into some gameplay. The gameplay of this game is overall really good. However, to give an accurate as possible review of the gameplay and other systems, I will do my best to set aside my own personal standards for games and my biases. But there are no guarantees that these will not somehow worm their way into this video. Let's start with the core gameplay loop. If you want a game to be good, you want the loop to be hard to find most of the time. For example, the loop of Minecraft is getting resources, build, kill mobs, rinse and repeat until finished. However, some games can create an obvious gameplay loop and still end up being really good. Two great examples of this are Risk of Rain 2, the entire topic of this video, and another game, Hades. In Hades, the loop is kill monsters, get resources, die, rinse, repeat. In Risk of Rain 2, the core gameplay loop is kill monsters, get money, get items, start the teleporter, kill the boss, repeat until dead or game completion. This is a pretty obvious gameplay loop, and it would seem that it would get boring after a while, right? Well, the developers clearly knew this, so they created systems to combat boredom. I think the single greatest example of this is the characters and their alternate abilities, really. Let's talk about the characters first and get into the alternate abilities a little bit later. Currently, as of the time of writing this review, there are 10 total playable characters: Commando, Huntress, Multi, Engineer, Artificer, Mercenary, Rex, Loader, Acrid, and Captain. These are all the playable characters, and all of their playstyles are vastly different. For a clear example, I'm going to look at Huntress and Engineer. Huntress lends herself more to hit and run tactics. She has some good single target damage, and her abilities do some decent crowd control damage as well. She works best most of the time when there are multiple targets, whereas she does have relatively okay single target damage. It's a little more lackluster than something like Commando. So when you're playing Huntress, the most important things are attack speed and critical strike chance. I'm not about to insult your intelligence by telling you what a critical strike is. If you've been playing games for any length of time, you know what they are. Now, let us look at Engineer. Engineer is a character who lends himself more to a set up camp type of playstyle. His turrets, his big ability that draws in many players, gain all of the items in his inventory without actually taking them from your inventory. It creates duplicates for the turrets. And there's one item, the bustling fungus, where if you sit still for 3 seconds, the healing aura will spread out from your person, providing little healing. For every stack of bustling fungus you get, the healing R grows larger and it provides more healing. This item is stupidly powerful for him because his turrets, they can't move. They always have an aura of healing around them, which is why this is called a setup camp style. Because all you're really doing is setting up a camp of, turrets. You have your fungus, you have your turrets. Pretty soon, you're set for the game. Nothing can really kill you. And that's just one of many examples I could have compared. As you can see, this diverse cast of characters allows for many different playstyles to emerge within the game, combating the ever dreading existentialism that you feel on a daily basis. However, you are not going to get all these characters at once. No, 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 no. You have to work for them. All of the characters, excluding Commando, require some sort of achievement to unlock, and these achievements can be very obscure and very hard to do. For example, Artificer's achievement is where you have to go to the bazaar in time and free her from her prison. And all of these, everything in the game, require some sort of achievement to unlock besides the base items and Commando. Artifacts are something that I'm going to talk about later on in this absolutely horribly made video, but keep in mind that as everything requires some sort of achievement to unlock besides the base items, you have to be ready to grind for these. Now, earlier in this bad review, I said something about alternate abilities. Yep, all the characters have a base set of abilities that they can use from the moment you unlock them. There's some alternate abilities that you can unlock through achievements. Some of these achievements are some bullshit. The alternate abilities are, most of the time, worth the work most of the time. Again, reiterating, most of the time. Some of these are definitely not worth the work. But an example of one that really is worth the amount of work it takes to get is one of Huntress's alternate abilities. The basic ability here is Arrow Rain. Use your big 9000 IQ gamer brain to figure out what that does. However, the alternate ability is Ballista, which allows her to fire 3 extremely high damaging shots. These absolutely melt boss health, but the achievement to get this ability is hard to do. You must clear Rally Point Delta specific stage without falling below 100% health, taking no damage, which is pretty difficult. It's almost impossible. It can be done, it's just super hard. I mean, I have every achievement. If an absolute moron like me can do it, you can do it. The systems in this game offer a huge payoff for taking big risks. For example, the challenge of the mountain makes boss fights harder and adds more than one boss to deal with at the end of each stage, but as a payout for every mountain challenge activated, you get double the rewards. So sometimes you have to wonder, are you strong enough to take it on, or are you just going to die and lose all your progress? This is only amplified in multiplayer mode, where everything is scaled up, including rewards, to accommodate for more than one player. Multiplayer is honestly a great thing for this game. It allows you to experience an overall great game with other people with similar tastes in games. This section of the video is pretty short because there really isn't anything to talk about here. It's literally just play a good game with friends or randoms on the internet and have fun. Discover secrets, unlock things together online. Nothing much. Now, I mentioned earlier in this review that I'd get to artifacts later on, and now is that time because the reason I decided to not include this in the gameplay part of the review is because it acts more like a system change. You are changing the core gameplay loop with these items. And you can only get these after gaining specific achievements, and as I said, they change the core gameplay loop of the game, and for lack of better terms, allow you to bend the rules of the game to your will. Normally, you'd get a random item of specific rarity. You know, you have your gray rarity, which is the lowest tier, all the way up to red, which is legendary, which is hard to find. But with the artifact of command, you get to choose the items you get in each rarity every single time. Another example is normally you have about 100 health and deal base damage with no upgrades and no levels, which is a thing that I'm not going to elaborate on because levels in this game literally mean nothing. But with the Artifact of Glass, you do 500% the damage at the cost of you're only at 10% of your base health. Artifacts change the game in a really major way, and it's another reason why the game is almost endlessly replayable. Now, I do have some issues with it. No game is without flaw, except maybe Skyrim, and this game is no exception. The most major issue is balancing. With Engineer and Artifact of Command, you become an unkillable god within a few minutes of gameplay. This, of course, ruins some of the fun, unless you kind of just want to watch everything die, in which case, you do you, bud. You do you. This is by far the most major issue. After playing it for so long, I haven't really encountered any other issues besides balancing on the artifacts. And even then, you can mostly ignore it because getting the artifacts is a challenge of itself. It's like a reward. Even in later stages, with hundreds of things on screen and so many effects happening at once, my computer experienced little to no lag. If they fix the balancing issues with this game, it would be darn near perfect. An example of fixing the balancing issues was you can keep the artifact at command and you can still pick all your items, but there should be some sort of penalty. You gain something for something else. As it stands, balancing issues do kind of ruin multiplayer, and with everyone using artifacts, as a new player, that can be really intimidating. I would suggest starting on single player, and after you're comfortable with the game, you can switch over to multiplayer. Forgive that bad pun. I couldn't just resist. I just couldn't resist. Okay. My final thoughts of this game is, all in all, Risk of Rain 2 is a great game. It's currently a little bit past the 1.0 build with a update slated for March of next year, or this year, depending on when I get this video out, and a DLC planned for Q4 of 2021. I will be buying and most likely reviewing the DLC, so stay tuned for that. If I was held at gunpoint and forced to rate this game on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a solid 8. It's a really good game that I suggest. The balancing issues are ignorable for the most part, but the issue's still there, so that lowers the score a bit. A really good experience all around. I highly suggest this game to anyone looking to get into the roguelike genre of games. It isn't really hardcore. If you're casual, you can play it, but it has some stuff for hardcore players too, like the Prismatic Trials. I left those out of the review because, in my opinion, they are best experienced for yourself. In fact, there's a lot I left out of this review because it's best experienced on your own. 8 out of 10, buy the game. It's 100% worth the price. Honestly, the devs should be charging this more. It's currently about $33 with the soundtrack on Steam and only about $25 without the soundtrack on Steam. And they could charge up to $40 for the game and soundtrack, and it would still be 100% worth the price. This game is really wonderful, and the devs should be doing more with it. And they actually are. They've recently expanded their team to 6 people from the original 3 people that did the core. Of course, this was 3 people who only did the core. They had help here and there. They still did the main base of the game, and that's impressive. But they have expanded their team, which should allow them to have more frequent updates and larger updates, along with the expansion pass later on next year or again this year, dependent on when I get this video out. But that's the review of Risk of Rain 2. Honestly, this game is good. If you haven't bought it, if you haven't played it yet, it is truly a shame, and I hope that you will buy it and I hope that I will see you in Risk of Rain 2 someday as a comrade, as a commando, as a huntress, artificer, acrid, or poison doggo. Who knows what you'll be? But